Well, thank you so much, Tom, for being a part of the show today. Hang on, let me start.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering the door when I knocked on it.
I was like, "Who's out there?"
He was like, "Someone's at the door." I was like, "Yes, the person we invited to come over here."
They saw you through the door, and I was just like, "Oh,
can you guys tell me who it is? I'm scared."
I was like, "I don't want to go out there." What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Deep Dark Well. We are joined today by the marvelous Tom Festo. Tom is a cinematographer, and he was the one that shot our film Tapestry. Tom, I wanted to jump right into it and just talk a little bit about how we met, because I think it's kind of cool how we, first started communicating and eventually got to shoot a film together.
Jeez, it was Brett that we first met, I guess. So me and my wife Peyton had a movie at the Coney Island Film Festival back in like 2022, and we saw Checkpoint, right? Loved that while we were there, and then like months later we went to Provo, Utah. We almost like didn't go because it's like so far away, but it got in and we were like, let's check out this thing, FilmQuest. It was so awesome. Like definitely just so fun being there. And then after one of the blocks, we were outside and we saw Brett hanging out outside the venue, and we were like, that's the guy from Checkpoint. And so we went up to him, we were like, were you in the movie Checkpoint? And he's like, yeah. Where did you see that? Because it's not even playing here. We're like, it was in the blah 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 Coney Island, and that eventually led to us hanging out with all you guys and meeting you. And that was 3 years ago now. And we were at the end of that hang, at the after party and everything. You guys were like, oh my god, we're in Atlanta. You're in Atlanta sometimes. If you're in Atlanta, hit us up. And we ended up moving here like a couple years ago, and I sent Jason a message and Brett a message just being like, hey, he said to hit you up when you guys are in Atlanta again, and we're here now. Would love to grab a beer or whatever. And Jason was like, yeah, for sure, but it won't be this weekend because we're shooting 2 shorts this weekend. Like, holy shit. I was like, do you guys want help? Because to me, in my head, I'm like, that's a much better way to get to know somebody, than just like grabbing a beer. It's like, let's, jump right in and, make something. And so Jason was like, yeah, come on out. And I ended up coming out and helping you guys on It Draws Closer. Met Mr. Noonan there. Was he at FilmQuest? I don't even remember who I met where. But I
think he might have been there that year. I don't remember. So we've kind of like gone back and forth.
What year was that?
2022.
Okay.
I don't know. Cut this part out where I don't remember which one of you I met at.
Nope. No, this is authentic. This is where people are like, this is a genuine conversation.
We got to hang out, and I was just, gaffing, gripping AC and like whatever he needed. And it was just super fun, like to meet everybody and really get to know everyone in like a much more like hands-on way, like just organically being like, all right, let's see how these guys make movies. And did not disappoint. Just like,
I was going to say, and how disappointed were you?
No, not at all. That's the thing. It's like, I'm showing up and I'm like, all right, we're going to be like blacking out this guy's windows in his house, shooting a movie, like, in his bedroom. Like, we'll see how it goes. I've done a lot of these before. And it was one of the better ones that I've done of that, kind of ilk. But,
well, thanks. That was my first time making a movie in like 12 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So that was kind of the beginning, I guess, of like the professional relationship, if you can call it that. And then
yes, our professional relationship.
Yes, we're all very professional. We're a bunch of highly trained, skilled professionals.
You were in New York before you were in Atlanta. You were working up there, and it's just the idea that you went to a film festival and saw a film we made, and then we intersected paths at another film festival on the complete opposite side of the country, only to then end up in the same city and then working on a project together. That is now like, screening internationally, like going to Sitges, like Fright Fest, like these, big festivals. And it's just, to me, there's just something that's always so, yeah, a little humble brag. Yeah. See, I like how I casually name drop those. But no, I do mean that sincerely though. And like, all the accolades and stuff aside, like there's just something so cool to me. And it goes back to just the idea and the spirit of filmmaking and in the teamwork it takes to even make anything, with just this idea of like, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to work with. And I don't know, I find it humbling, but also just like insanely cool that, we were able to connect, and over, I guess, the course of like, meeting like years ago, and then just like sort of staying in touch, like, you reaching out to me, us meeting up. Like I remember Bear Lime Film Fest. Like there were some after parties that we went to there, and we, chatted more. And I think that's when I first approached you with Tapestry. I was like, well, hey, if you want to shoot something, I got this story about a haunted blanket. And then from there, it's, it just goes from there. But I love that process. And I'm curious, like, you've obviously worked on, so you shot, was it your first feature that you shot this past year?
Yeah. In January, window shopping.
So, and then you've obviously done a multitude of shorts, some of which you've, like, the one that you played at Coney Island was The Malfunction, correct? The one that you directed.
Yep.
But you've done, and then obviously, like, just working on various, like, commercial projects and things and like that. I'm curious if there's, like, I guess let's start with, like, the short films and maybe go into the feature, but just the idea of, like, sort of the start of the process. Like when you and I first have that conversation, like, hey, let's work on this thing together. Like what happens next for you as a DP that ends up, getting us to shoot day and beyond?
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, we were especially blessed, like having, like when you first started, like with this and brought it to me, you had like this, I don't know if it's a Bible or like a deck or whatever you want to call it, but like this very thick, I mean, it wasn't a physical thing. I don't know why I'm going like this, but it was a Google Doc, and it had, logistical thkind it had aesthetic things, it had references, it had shot ideas, it had just everything that you could, kind of want to sink your teeth into. And that is super helpful at the beginning, because when a director comes to me with a project, the first thing that I'm trying to do is figure out what the hell they want, right? So it's like, what do you want this to be? How do you want it to feel? And then we kind of go from there. I want it to be good, and I want it to look scary.
Cool.
So, just us, I think for me, the most valuable thing sometimes is just, grabbing a beer or coming over and walking around. Like, luckily, like many of your films, this one was shot in your house. So we had unfettered access to the location for as long as we needed, just to come in and be like, oh, what if we put the camera here? What if we put the camera there? And I'm like a pre-pro head. You know that by now. But like, just, we storyboarded out the whole thing with Artemis and just like went around and said, oh, what if we did this dolly move? What if camera was over here? And, we kind of got inspired. And use that to kind of extrapolate those storyboards out to overhead diagrams and stuff. I just love knowing what we're supposed to be doing when we show up. And even if we don't do it, you know what I mean? At least having like a rubric for what we need to pull out of this if we don't have any ideas on the day. So, and then if that gives you more room to kind of like riff or get inspired, because we know, okay, well, this is what we were going for. Does this fit into whatever else we're doing? And, you can kind of go from there instead of, I'm sure you've been on these jobs where you walk in, it's like, okay, for this scene, maybe we do, it's like, all right, well, clock's ticking. One of my all-time favorite quotes about movie making came from a mentor of mine who said, filmmaking is basically when at the beginning of every day, you take a big pile of money and you put it in the middle of the room and you set it on fire. And then your job is to get all the shots you need before the fire goes out. Like that, it's you set up all these, dominoes, and like it's going, and you're just kind of like racing it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Kyle
like
really liked that one. I saw the smile light up.
I did. I love that one.
Something I'd always heard, and I don't know where I heard it, and maybe it's some paraphrasing, but the idea of like, as a director, and I think as a DP as well, and that's one thing I really appreciate about working with you is all these different, like, I feel like we were prepared, and that's where this quote comes from, like the idea of be over prepared, but then be prepared to throw it all away,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that necessarily equates, literally to show up and then just don't do what you planned, but like keeping an open mind about the process and realizing that, there might be a better idea, as you work through it. But one thing I really appreciate and respect about you as a DP is that you have your ducks in a very tight row. I mean, like when you showed me like the lighting diagrams and stuff, and like, because that helped me as a director too, because I think that, sometimes we've done more, I guess, like, for lack of a better word, like simpler setups, where we're shooting mostly in continuity because we just have like a few lights up, or, we've got the set design in a more 360 environment. Because we've done some like Steadicam stuff where that was necessary. But like with this one in particular, like we shot it fairly not, I wouldn't say like completely out of order, but like we definitely like took advantage of, because you had that, I don't even know what it is. I'm going to sound like an idiot if I try to explain it. So I'll let you do that. But the lighting setup on the iPad with all those just minute details, and like me as a director having to understand like, okay, like let's definitely make sure we get ourselves covered from this angle, because I want you to then also have the time to put those details into play. And just like where everybody benefits, we're maximizing our time, but like everything is also looking its best.
It's great to shoot in sequence when you can. Obviously, it's like, very helpful for performance and for understanding like, how the scene's going to feel and stuff like that. But a lot of the time, like we just can't, like time wise. I don't remember how over we went on Tapestry, but we did go over, and that was, in spite of us doing everything we can to try and optimize and consolidate things. And, that's the main thing I love about the overhead diagram is it shows you, if you're looking at it top down, it's like you have this many shots from over here. And this shot is basically, 1A is the same as 2D. So we can get those at the same time. And then this many shots over here. And you're just, we get everything from over here. Then we flip the room, we get everything over here. And, if there's multiple scenes that happen in there and they have different lighting, different time of day or whatever it is, sometimes you can even get crazy enough to be like, especially if you have the iPad control and like we had, and you can save your looks ahead of time, say, okay, now we're going to this other scene that takes place from over here. It's the same costumes. We just need it to look a little different. We'll, change this. And then when we flip back over here, we just hit this button and it goes back to what it was, 90 minutes ago, and we just continue as we were. That was especially useful for the for Tapestry, where we had that little lighting flip that I don't know if anyone will ever notice, but it was very deliberate. I think we talked about that a good amount, but if the camera's on one side, our levels would have been over here, and then when we flipped the camera to the other side, the levels were over here, and so we kind of shot everything from one side of the room, and then when we flipped over, had the levels reverse. And there were a couple times like when we went in the kitchen, or when we brought I'm literally in the room we shot in. I just realized that.
It's funny to see you pointing to the exact reference. Like
when the camera was right here, shooting up through this table, just being able to quickly adapt things and go back to where we want it, and having that level of control, especially when you have a smaller crew like we had, is super helpful, because otherwise you're running around and you're, oh, what was that light at? You got to write it down, and you have to go and dial it in manually. Yeah. It's like, it was at 20%, reduce that, go outside and turn that light down to 20%. And, it wouldn't have been possible with what we had, because we had a Titan tube in like every window for ambience. And we had that, 1200X outside with the gel on it. We had all kinds of stuff going on where it would have been very difficult for us to keep track of with the people we had. It was just, it was spread very thin as it was.
Yeah. It was a very elaborate setup, I think, for and we'll throw some props to Luke and Jen, who own Bird Mountain Media. Luke McMahon and Jen Bird, who
absolute rock stars
and a scene for us that day. And it's interesting too, because like to your point, like it's exactly what you said. Like it's like you're using your resources, but then you're also having to find a way to like be smart about how you can exploit those resources to best get what you need to get. Because I think sometimes those aren't always mutually exclusive. But I feel like, obviously nowadays there's different tech and apps and things. I'm curious, how has like the idea of cinematography, and we can kind of go back a little bit even further. Like I am curious to know like what got you into this in the first place, if there was a certain movie or moment. But then I also want to talk a little bit about like, how the technology has changed and how that maybe has shaped for you, or evolved for you over the years and changed how you work as a DP. But maybe to start, let's talk about, take us back, Tom. I want to know what little kid Tom was watching when he was like, I want to do this.
Little kid Tom was watching Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and
I was going to call it. I was going to say Indiana Jones for sure.
Little kid Tom, the newest series from Heebie-Jeebies Pictures.
or a Tom Selleck movie with that mustache you got going on.
Yeah, a lot of Miami Vice in my childhood.
Yeah,
one of the finest mustaches in independent cinema.
It was those action adventure movies that just like can grab you as a kid, and like you're just constantly escalating the set pieces, and like people jumping out of cars and spaceship battles, things blowing up, lightsaber fights, and then me having my uncle's VHS camera or, you know, some little, like the first digital camera I ever had that my brother won in a focus group, just like, you know, me and my brother and our friend just like making a video of like a lightsaber battle. It's like, you know, we got these toy lightsabers and I got this camera and you know, I'm just going to film, you go, and that's kind of, you know, but that's kind of where it started. Just like trying to emulate these larger than life films that I grew up with, and just was, you know, what kid like didn't watch Star Wars and want a lightsaber or a blaster or something? Like, it's just so cool. I don't know.
I think it's so funny that like, I think everybody, I don't know a filmmaker who didn't have some element of Star Wars as part of their first thing. I mean, I remember doing that, like taking swords and then trying to rotoscope the lightsabers and, you know, do that and like test that effect. And it looked horrible, but you know, that was the
charm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the films that got you into filmmaking. What's the one that got you into, because I know you've directed stuff as well, but what's the one that made you want to be a cinematographer?
I didn't really think that I wanted to get into cinematography until I was already working in film. And it came from like me already being involved in like lighting and working under other cinematographers and like seeing their process and seeing what they could do and how like the choices that they would make to like tell a story. Right. So like I'm showing up and, you know, when I got out of film school, I was like 21 years old. And I, you know, thought I was hot shit. And then a few DPs that I worked for knocked me down a few pegs. And then,
As they do.
Yeah. And it just, you know, it was very humbling. But after that, like just so hungry for more and more knowledge, and just like started sucking it up and just like watching what people who were more experienced than me would do differently than what I would think they would do. And kind of getting to that point of like, thinking maybe I could do this, because just like being on set is so enjoyable for me. I don't know what else I would be doing. I really don't. But like just observing that process and observing what goes into that was just, it was very gradual. It wasn't like a moment where I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. It was like, you know, eventually I just realized that I was already thinking that.
Kyle, you wanted to be a cinematographer.
Yes, I wanted to be like a camera operator first and then a DP. And then I, you know, was focusing on DP, but then projects kept falling apart. And so I ended up getting dragged into producing. And then I was like, maybe I should do this.
All the movies I produce actually get made.
Yes.
That thing you did on the other movie, I want you to do that thing for mine too. You got a lot of bucks, kid.
A good producer is so like hard to come by. I feel like so much of the time, sorry, speaking specifically in like indie narrative, it's like just and it's so valuable to just have someone that you know, knows what to do, when to do it, like, you know, how to make things happen. I feel like so much of that is like so opaque, and it's just so. It's honestly like a miracle when all this stuff comes together and you actually get those, you know, 12 hours of that weekend or whatever it is that, you know, allows you to just actually film people doing the thing that you wrote on the page.
I always feel like, especially with like the indie space or like what we're doing with our, like scheduling is always the hardest. Like that, just literally what you said, like just getting everybody together in a room. And I think that's it's funny because sometimes, yeah, it's like, especially with like, you know, if it's like a day shoot or a 2-day shoot, it's like, how can we not move how do we not do any location moves? I was like, we've got everybody here. I want to keep them here.
It's like when I said earlier that we did 3 films last month, it was not because we wanted to. It was just because that was how schedules worked out.
That's
like
just when everyone was available.
Yeah. We were trying to get one of them shot in July, and it's just like nobody was available. We pushed months and months down the road. But
well, it's hard too, because like if I'm writing, directing it, editing it, I have the most to gain. Part of why we try to keep our crews so short is because then everybody has such a stake in it. Like you are the one controlling the look, like, you know, like that is wholly you. And like, you know, with the talent we have, like generally speaking, they are like leading the film. Like it's, you know, we only have 2 or 3 people in that at the most usually anyway. So it's like, you are the film. Like, so I think that's been kind of nice on the indie side, is like being able to sort of like everybody we bring in has a piece of that pie. Obviously, you know, we have different jobs and things to pay the rent, pay the bills, whatever. And I'm curious to learn about like, how do you manage sort of that work life, like, doing the passion, like, paying to keep the lights on kind of thing. Like, are you able to sort of like make a living, using your talent to kind of like do that? And then obviously like leaving time, because it's always interesting to me, the idea that like the things I want to spend the most time on are the things I can't spend the most time on, just with the way life is. And obviously like, different people have different situations, but I'm curious for you, how that correlates to sort of like your day to day.
My strategy is just say yes to everything. It's like, and partially from like a financial standpoint, but also it's like, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know, like a project, even if it's something you're like, oh, I guess I have to do this thing. It might surprise you, and it often does. The creative fulfillment of this job, this line of work, is obviously not to be understated, but the interpersonal aspect of it to me is like maybe equally as fulfilling, like the collaboration and all the personalities that you meet. And like, it's easy to take for granted, but I think it's really cool that we get to, in production at least, wake up and go to a new place to solve a new set of problems with different people, different, sometimes like different equipment or whatever it is. It's like, it's so varied. It's never the same thing twice. And that to me, like, just keeps me going every time. Just even, in the mornings when I'm on the subway or whatever, just, it's like 5 a.m. I'm like, what am I doing? Why do I do this? I'm so tired. But you get your first cup of coffee and then you're good. And you're talking to somebody, in the back of a lift gate, or you're, walking through a location saying, we'll do this here. And, oh, what if we had this come in over there or whatever, and just getting ideas from people and saying like, oh, that's a good one. It's just so creative, so collaborative. And like, I don't know, I'm a people person. So I just love, socializing and like being around people that are working together towards like this common goal. And everyone has their own little battle that they're fighting. The gaffer wants to make it look one way, and the production designer, you can't put a light there because I have to put this table there or whatever. Like it's just, everybody's fighting for what they think is the best thing for the movie through their own lens. And, that's when you're directing or when you're DPing or whatever it is, like your job is to kind of like take those things and channel them and take the best of those things and put them into, what it is you think is going to be the best final outcome. Because that's, ultimately what you're getting paid for, right? Is the DP or director is like your taste and what everybody, your gaffer should know more about lighting than you. Your camera assistant should know more about camera than you. Your key grip should know more about gripping than you. And your job is to like take all that under advisement and push it into, giving the director what you think they want, right? Because you can only do what it is you think they want you to do. It's a little off the beaten path from the original point of that question, but in terms of like how to make a living, I don't know, it's different for everybody, right? For me, I try to shoot as much as I can, but if people call me to gaff something, I'm still going to go gaff it. If, old gaffer that I used to work for is like, hey man, you want to best on this commercial for 2 days? Like, yeah, sure. It's a chance to be there doing the thing that I love.
Is there anything that you're looking forward to doing on the next project that you haven't gotten a chance to do or that you want to try out?
I would love to undertake something, one of those like Wonder type movies, like we were talking about, 1917 Birdman type of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's just such an interesting set of challenges. You know what I mean? Like figuring, and it goes back to the collaboration aspect that we were talking about. Mm-hmm. It's like sometimes, I don't know if you watch like the behind the scenes of some of this stuff, like The Haunting of Hill House had that like Wonder episode and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, it's great. Like, you the steady cam, as soon as the frame wipes like one part of the room, everybody moves in and they're like moving stuff out and changing this. And like, it's
incredible. That was such an incredible shot.
Yeah.
To pull off.
And having like the whole location like pre-lit in a way where, things are able to turn on and off as you need them. And just like,
Shit,
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
watch that again tonight.
Yeah, man. It's sick.
That sequence is nuts.
You can say what you want about like the gimmickiness of the oneer, and when it draws attention to itself, it's you could say this or that, but I think that it is in a way kind of like the quintessence of like all that we do in production, right? Because you're focused on all these logistical issues and all these departments like coming together to solve this really big problem, and it's a problem that really doesn't need to exist, right? Like
Sure.
that's the thing that just in general, like with us doing this, like no, it's entertainment, right? Like we can make it however we want, so or we don't have to make it at all of this we do because we love to do it and we want it to be this way that we have it in our heads.
I'm working on a very early stages of a screenplay that is designed to be a one-shot feature.
Nice.
I've always wanted to do something like that. I don't care if it calls attention to itself. Like there are stories that it should be that.
No, yeah, for sure. That wasn't any way for me to say like, oh, it sucks when people do this. I want to do it.
Yeah, I've been trying to find that story that I think that works for that oneer. So I'd love to do one eventually, but the problem is the money, like how much it would take in order to pull this stuff off. One day though, fingers crossed.
I love a oneer for the real time aspect of it. Like to me, as a storytelling device, like, and certainly like, obviously I lean into like the horror thriller space. Like there's something just like so like unsettling about being with a character in real time where like it's almost more unsettling to me knowing that it's like, if I go into a movie knowing like this is a single shot film and it's like a horror movie, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be with these characters as they're going through this survival scenario in real time. Like there's no cuts that will, alleviate that stress or whatever. Cause like, just like a cut can be used to, heighten that, it can also alleviate. And like, I always think that's so interesting because like in theory, like I work in the commercial space as an editor, and a lot of times, we're taking like, bigger ideas and stories, and we're fitting them into smaller 30-second, really bite-sized pieces. And a lot of times, it's especially with like social media these days, you're cutting things very sporadically and it's very fast paced. And I feel like that's the one thing whenever we do our horror stuff, I'm like, I want to try to challenge myself. Like what can I do to cut the least? Like, how can I cut the least? And that does come from like, Hitchcock and Spielberg, and like where they would sort of frame things up, in the lens and create their shots in that way, as opposed to like, it starts as a wide and the character and the camera, meet and form a close up, as opposed to, doing a cut. And I think I always found that so interesting. And I think there's a lot of power to using the camera in that way where it doesn't come across as, distracting. Obviously it can.
That's kind of what I was getting at with like, it calling attention to itself versus not, right? Like 1917 or Birdman, it's like very much a part of the film, right? It's like deliberately like trying to engross you in that way, but like it's also being like, look what we did. Like when Spielberg or Kurosawa or like you said Hitchcock, like any of these guys, they'll just use compound dolly moves to like go from a wide to a medium and then like pan and catch another character over here and whatever. And it's like, yeah, this take was actually like several minutes long, and in any other movie they would have cut.
Obviously there's nostalgia that comes with like rewatching old films, and just whatever memories you made while making them. Like I love going back and watching the stuff my buddies and I made, but I do think it's sort of humbling, but then it's also, again, just another like learning device, I guess, to sort of see where I came from and maybe see some things that like were great in theory, weren't executed well at all. But like, and then trying those out now, like there's shots that I tried in high school, that I was not doing a great job of, but that I've now like, oh, hey, Tom's coming over. I know he's going to be controlling this. He could do this shot well. I'm going to try it now.
You have so much faith in me. I really appreciate it. I like going back and watching old stuff because I feel like I was less self-censored. I was less like, critical of myself. I was less like, oh, well, Chivo already did this in Revenant, so I'm not gonna, everyone will know I'm ripping him off. It's good to like.
Yeah, you didn't care. You just
or I didn't know, right? But like either way, you were so much more willing to just like try stuff and do cool things and things that I thought were unique or interesting then, I might be like, oh, that's so cliche now. But like, I probably would like look at it like a person my age then would look at it and, you know, have that same poo-poo attitude or something. I think that's like another thing that is hard to overcome, is like that inner critic in yourself that thinks like everyone that is watching something you made has seen all the things you've seen, and, you know, has all the opinions you have, and is like just not going to appreciate it. And it's tough to turn off, but I really think you have to like work to. I have to work to, because it's like nobody's thinking that way, and if they are, like, you know, they're probably in the minority. But like when I'm sitting in a movie theater, whether it's for like, you know, some blockbuster release or it's at a film festival, and I'm watching, you know, what somebody did, even if it does remind me of something else that some other filmmaker did at some point in the past 100+ years of this industry, like everything's been done, sorry, but like I'm not thinking like, oh, they ripped it off, that sucks. I'm like, oh yeah, that's like in that other movie that I really like. Like,
it almost excites you. Yeah.
Yeah,
as long
exactly.
as it's not like a blatant like rip, you know, like they didn't like shot for and they used the exact same whatever. But no, I think it's fun to me to sort of see those things, to be able to track the influences. Like, I mean, again, I'm speaking strictly on horror, but like, I mean, I can't tell you how many horror film festivals I've been to where I'm like, I can probably list this guy's like top 5 favorite movies, or like, you know, hit one of them in his top 5, you know, just based on like, because I just feel like, especially like with the, you know, 70s, 80s horror films, like there's just some very apparent influences. Like a big one of mine and Josh's too is Evil Dead, and like I feel like I always get some form of Evil Dead in almost every movie.
Hell, one of the shots we just did is like basically our love letter to like the shot design. Like, let's just Evil Dead it up.
It's just like, let's just literally do, and maybe that's to my point. I was like blatant, like, just like, we're just going to do the exact shot from Evil Dead. But it's fun.
But it works for it. It works in the space, and like you use it, you have that knowledge, you know how to use it appropriately.
And also, anybody who likes that movie isn't going to look at it and go, can't believe they ripped off my favorite movie. It's like, they're going to be like, oh yeah, it's like my favorite movie.
I just don't care. Like, do what works for the film. And if your influences to come through, who cares? Like,
that's the other thing, man. Like I know, like, because we make movies that mostly are screening at film festivals, like we kind of are making movies for filmmakers, but at the same time, like the only people that are even going to know enough to point that out. I felt like such a doofus, man. I was watching No Time to Die, and they were in like the bad guys' evil lair at the end of the film, and they were where they're like farming the disease or something, and there were a bunch of Asterotitan tubes like in there, it like as production design, like they were in the water. And I lean over to my wife and I'm like, those are Asterotitan tubes in the water. And she's like, what? What's that? Like, never mind. I know what it is. Like, nobody cares that you know what the thing is or how they did it or that it's been done before. That people don't go to the movies for that, except for me and you, because we're dorks.
I feel like it always just comes back to the story forward mentality. Like, is this helping tell the story in this best way? Like, regardless if it's you know, utilizing a technique in another film. But I think that's also like, I mean, art in general. Like art imitates life, and you know, that whole cycle of all that as well. It's like you're picking and choosing and mixing and matching and finding new ways to make new things. And it's like you said, like, and is it Tarantino that said the quote where it's like, sure, everything's been done, but it hasn't been done by you, or is that somebody else?
I mean, he probably stole it from somebody else.
It's that one guy
nice.
That you guys know about. That one guy or gal, I don't know.
Yeah.
But take the same story and have it directed by 3 different people. Like, sure, like the core, you know, ideas and concepts may be the same, but at the same time, like the approach to the storytelling is different. That was one of the coolest things to me about film school, was seeing, like, in our directing classes, like having 3 or 4 different groups of people go out and direct the same scene, and just how different it could be. And I think there was a little bit of like, you know, like you were intentionally trying to make it different because you knew that other people might, you know, take a similar approach. But I don't know. I think that's what's always fascinating me about just like directing specifically, but also just film, like just the idea that this one story could be told. And like you said, and to your point, a lot of the same stories have been told year after year. And it's just how they're told that is so fascinating to me.
Everybody's going to have a different take on something. I saw a thing recently about American Psycho. You know that scene where Willem Dafoe like interrogates Patrick Bateman in his office, and he apparently they had him do it 3 different ways, where the first way they'd had him do it was like he knew Patrick Bateman was the killer. The second way they had him do it was he knew Patrick Bateman was innocent but was doing the interview as a formality. And the third way they had him do it was he wasn't sure. And then they took all 3 of those takes and then just cut them together so like have the audience like not know. And like to bring it back to the other thing you were saying, it shows that you know, whether it's 3 people directing the same thing or one person doing the same thing 3 different ways, different interpretations of the same text can yield such a different result, right? Like just because you look at something in one way doesn't mean that's the way it is, right? Because there's so much the audience will pull out of something that you might not have even intended, or there's so much that an actor might bring to it when, you know, after you do your first read through, they're like, you know, delivering something very aggressive that you thought would be very sad. And it's like, oh, I didn't really think of it that way. That's actually way better. Or, you know what, that's not it. Whatever, you know, that's the part of the process. But like there's a lot of different ways to do the same thing.
Anything we haven't talked about that you would like to get in?
Great question. If there's anything else I want to talk about. What a change of pace. Just kidding. Hire me. I want to work with you. If you're watching this and you want to make a movie, call me.
Where can they find
you
on
Instagram, email me. TomFesto.com or @FramesByTom. If you are interested in working together in some way, shape, or form, let's do it.
When's that feature film coming out?
The Window Shopping, directed by Gavin Fields, shot by yours truly, coming out sometime next year. I don't know when we finish The Color and whenever they get into some festivals and it screens there. Go watch it. It did a friends and family screening a few month ago or 2 months ago at the Terra, which went really well. It was pretty well received.
I was there.
You were there. Well. Jason was there. Very, very kind of him to.
Yeah, I didn't get my invite. Must have got lost in spam.
Josh, don't make me feel bad.
I'm not driving all the way to Atlanta.
Thanks so much for being on the show. It's been great to talk to you a little bit about, like, I mean, the process, like your specific process, but then also just kind of opening it up to like, it's just some other general ideas about like where you came from and sort of where you end up now. And we really appreciate you. I'm very grateful for all the great work you did on Tapestry, and I hope we get to do some more films in the future. But yeah, go follow Tom, look him up on Instagram, hire him for your film projects, and Taco Bell, get us that sponsorship.
You're out of focus.
I love Taco Bell.
Now I'm in.
Thank you for having me, man. That's always a fun time hanging out with you guys. Appreciate the time.